could only do Thursdays, and so I'm not usually so much just do it all. So much easier.
Thank you so much for braving the weather and coming out tonight. Right around 6:45, we were looking out and there was like 2 people, and I was like, I'm hungry because we have a lot of pizza. We're excited to start back up for this school year. Our grant is for the remainder of this school year, so we've got a series of professional development workshops. We're going to finish up the 2 that we seem to keep postponing and postponing, so that will be this month and next month. November, December, and January, we are going to be doing a math series. Kim Raines, retired math supervisor, is going to come and do a workshop series with us. So we know for sure that will be November, December, January. We are still trying to plan March through the end of the school year. So if you have any suggestions for us, please make sure you write that down in your comment section because our planning group is still getting together. A couple of ideas have been thrown out, but we really would like to hear from people that are here what you would like to see. So give us some ideas and we'll be reviewing those in the coming weeks and kind of announcing them as we secure presenters. You're in for a treat tonight. We've got Renella here. It is one of our preschool special ed teachers. She's been doing it for 29 years. And John Fleming, I think all of you know by now, one of our social workers. And he's been a social worker for 28 years with Fauquier County and also has his own private practice. Incentives, if you grabbed it on the way in, great. If you didn't, on your way out, the cards are right there. Feel free to take one for your classroom. We will give out the certificates at the end, just like before, so give us your feedback on the blue sheet. Everyone should have a blue sheet at the bottom of their handouts. And when you give us that, we'll give you the certificate of attendance. Let's see. If you need any copies of our upcoming schedule, it doesn't have what they are yet, but at least it has the save the date so that you know. Feel free to grab one of those. If you didn't sign in, please make sure you go ahead and sign in. And lastly, for those of you that experienced Bob this summer, Books on the Bus, I don't know if anybody's heard of it, but that is our new initiative with Fauquier County Public Schools. If you know of any families that are looking to donate books, or if you have any books that you want to donate, we are starting to gear up, believe it or not, for next year. So feel free to send me an email or send any families my way with an email. We would gladly accept any donations of children's books, board books, picture books, chapter books. We would welcome them. So without further ado, I will turn it over to John and enjoy your evening.
Hello everybody, welcome back. Thanks for coming in the rain. Good thing I'm done next month because you're going to have a lot of snow. I'm planning my snow days already because with all this rain, when it gets cold, we're going to have a great winter. So thank you all for coming. Tonight's a pretty exciting topic and pretty relevant for all of us because anybody that works with preschoolers needs to deal with emotions and helping kids develop their sense of emotion and helping them kind of grow into emotionally well-rounded people. So that's what we're going to be focusing on mainly tonight, specifically anger and some of those things. So let's just jump in if my thing works.
Did you turn it on?
I thought I did. No. Oh, there it is. Now it works. All right, so at the bottom, we're going to talk about emotional literacy. When you hear the word literacy, what do you think of? Reading primarily, right? But all the things associated with it, reading, writing, spelling, all those things, to be literate, you have to do all those things. Emotional literacy really develops in a similar way. There's building blocks and it kind of grows outward. And we're going to talk about that and talk about how we develop our emotional literacy, how we learn what concepts mean, and why our concept of anger is different from the concept of anger of a 2-year-old child, 3-year-old child, 4-year-old child, and so on. And how that grows and develops. We're also then going to talk about, kind of controlling anger, handling disappointment. That's all part of emotional literacy. And then finally, how to problem solve, how to help kids learn how to start developing a framework now so that as they have emotional issues in the future, they can rely on that to be able to kind of navigate through their world to come to an emotional resolution and an understanding of how they're feeling and what's going on here. Okay? So that's kind of our game plan tonight. So I want to start off, how many of you have heard of Piaget? Any psychology classes, anything? Piaget was an interesting character. He had more kids than I had. I had 6. I think, how many did Piaget have? Like 12 or 13, something? It was a lot of kids. And he was kind of different because he had these kids. He had this psychology lab in his house. Basically, he watched his kids, he observed them, and he made observations about how they did at different stages. And that's kind of where all these theories came from. But especially with the little kids, his early theories stage theories of how kids develop and what they do are very significant, and especially when we're talking about emotional literacy, when we're talking about how emotions develop and language develops and all those things because they're tied together. We're going to talk about how it happens in each stage. So the earliest stage is kind of a quick review. Sensory-motor stage, learn through 2 years. Children learn about the world through their senses and by manipulating objects. Okay? They see things, they touch things, they smell things, they taste things. Think about 2-year-old, everything's in their mouth, right? You have to pick up all the things that are smaller than yay big so they don't choke themselves. But everything goes in their mouth. They lick things, they taste things, and that's just what they do. Right? Why do they do that? Because they're perceiving their world through their senses, as we all do. But at this point in time, that's the only way they can really perceive their world, is through their senses. And they're just starting to explore. Everything's new, everything's different. Everything they see is the first time that they've ever seen it. And when it's out of their sight, it's like it never existed. That's that first stage. But as they grow and develop, we get to that second stage, the pre-operational stage, which is where most of our work happens. Most of the kids that you're working with now is in that next stage, the pre-operational stage, 2 through 7. During this stage, children develop memory and they develop imagination. Okay? Imagination being the key thing. That really is the key thing. In the earlier stage, there's no imagination, there's no abstract thinking, everything is concrete, it's here and now. But over those next 5 years, in that next stage, they start to grow and they start to be able to think abstract. They start to imagine creatures, they start to imagine things that exist when they're playing, they start to create things that don't exist in the real world, but in their head, this is what this is, and they can give you these elaborate stories of what these things are and what they do and how they do this and where it comes from. It's really fascinating what they're able to do. But what you're watching play out loud is you're watching them develop abstract thinking. The ability to think about things that aren't really happening. And the big thing that's really important here, for our purposes tonight, is the most abstract thing that any of us deal with on a daily basis is our emotions. Say that again. The most abstract thing that any of us deal with on a daily basis are our emotions. It makes us sing, play music in our head. Period. It's cool. So that's the most abstract thing that can happen. So in this stage, that's where that starts to develop. And that's the foundation for real emotions that will carry us through the life. As you move on from this stage and kind of go to the next stage, we're starting to see they're becoming aware of external events, as well as feelings other than their own. Feelings other than their own. So in the 5 years that you're dealing with them, it's very hard for them to understand how someone else feels. They may be able to react, see some kid crying, and bring them something, do something kind for them, or do that. You'll see that. But they don't actually feel the feelings that other people feel. That sense of empathy is not developed really until that later stage. And if it is, it's just the precursors of empathy. It's not really true empathy. But that's what makes what you do so important. Because if you don't have the precursors for empathy, if you don't have the precursors for being able to look at how someone else is feeling, then you're not able to be empathetic. You're not able to walk a mile in someone else's shoes. You're not able to really try to understand what someone else is going through. And that's sad for society. We have a bunch of kids that can't do that. And the sad thing is, we do have a bunch of kids that can't do that. We see them every day. You hear about it on the news. People are just oblivious to how other people feel. So this work that you're doing and what you can do about emotional literacy and the way you can help kids grow and develop that empathy is very, very pivotal. The lessons they learn now and over the next 5 years or so are going to really carry them into their adult lives. And then in the last stage, they're able to use logic to solve problems and plan, what's going to happen to them in the future. This is where they really start to be able to control their empathy, control their emotions, control how they respond to things. Because I have this big thing, and any time I have someone in therapy and they're having problems with anxiety or dealing with anything, I always ask the $24,000 questions. Well, where do your feelings come from? Where do they come from? I had a kid at the high school Wednesday. We had a session. He was breaking down by the end of it because he was having all these feelings. I said, well, where do they come from? They did this to me. They did this. They did this. This is happening. I'm doing it. I said, they can't give you feelings. And ultimately, the answer to that is your feelings come from your thoughts. This is that last stage where you have the thoughts. Those thoughts then are processed and you create feelings from your thoughts. Now, you're not always aware of them. Sometimes they're subconscious. Sometimes you've done them so many times over the year that they're almost like conditioned things that happen to you. But you can change those feelings based on the thoughts that you have. But that's down the road. You don't have to worry about the thoughts. You don't have to worry about those things. What you have to worry about is what? Creating abstract thinking and creating empathy. And that's how you become healthy. So we've got 3 preschoolers there. And this one here with the lip, it's really cool because it's one of those gifts. If you look at Google, the lip goes up and down like this. It's not good here, but it does. You got all those things. So if you had one of these kids in your classroom, all right, I just want you to reflect on each one. Just real quickly to yourself, you don't say it out loud. What are they feeling? What are the emotions that they're going through right now? As you look at them, and it's captured forever in this picture. How about the first one like this? Oh my God, but that's not a feeling. So what is she feeling? Is she afraid, you think? Maybe.
Surprise.
Could be surprised. Questioning.
What is happening?
Overwhelmed. Okay. What else? Hey, how about the little guy next to her?
Mad, angry.
Angry, mad, anything else?
Frustrated.
Frustrated? How about the little girl with the lip?
Just sad.
That's the universal pouting sign. Is she sad?
Yes.
How? What about the last little girl? She feels what?
Pretty content.
Content? A little precocious maybe?
Somebody just said yes.
Somebody got it wrong way.
Do you think you guys are right in identifying their emotions? because you had different answers. Am I right? You can't all be right because you had different answers. Huh? You can all be right even though you have different answers? Okay. How did you come up with the answers that you came up with? Well, by the pictures, but what did you rely on to come up with your experience with what? Yes, you're right, your experience, but your experience with what?
Personal.
With children and their emotions. And what else? That's one of the things that you rely on.
Our personal experience.
Your own personal experience, your own personal emotions. Right? Have you ever wondered why two kids can experience the exact same stimulus and have completely different emotional reactions to the exact same thing? Isn't that something? Why is that? Their experiences are different. It's how they process it, it's what those experiences have been. You know, and it's what they've been through, it's how they've grown. And this is how emotional intelligence grows. It's based on all the experiences that come up for us in our lives. And back up. So Piaget did another thing that I think is even better than his schema, than his stage theory. And that was the whole notion of schema theory. Has anyone heard of schema? You're going to love it. And remember how I said he learned. He observed his children, and he just wrote down what they did, and then he made theories about the way that they did it. So Piaget said, in talking about schema theory, he first talked about it when it came to language. So that fits right in with this, because when you develop language, that's when you start being able to do abstract things, because language is a very abstract thing. Right? So, think about a kid that is just learning how to talk, about 17, 18 months. Not when they say their first word, but when they really start stringing together 2- and 3-word sentences, right? So, you have this kid, I'll say it's my son John, my oldest son. When he was little, we would go and visit people, because we only had one kid, you could really go visit people. If you had more than one, it was too much to put in the car and worry about. So we would go visit people. And I remember the first time that we went to this house, these people had this golden retriever. Okay? I don't think he had ever seen a dog before in his life. All right? And he was startled, but he was fascinated by this yellow creature that was running around wagging his tail and licking him and doing all the things that golden retrievers do. And so, being the good parents that we were, we talked in baby talk, and we said, well, that's a doggy. Doggy. And so he, doggy, 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 doggy. All right? And we taught him that day what a doggy was. Wasn't that cool? Like 16 words. We teach him doggy. He has this word. He has this concept of doggy. So a couple weeks later, we go get invited to another house. They don't have a dog. They have a cat. So we show up at the house, and this cat creeps around and doesn't pay any attention to him. And he's like, doggy, 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 doggy. And we'd say, no, Johnny, it's not a doggy. That's a kitty. Doggies go, arf, arf, arf. Kitties go, oh. So now he has a definition of a kitty and a definition of a doggy. But guess what just happened to his definition of doggy? It grew. Before, he knew it was this hairy animal that was there. He didn't realize that it barked. He didn't realize that there was a difference between a cat and a dog. But now all of a sudden he does. When the week passes, we saw a bird in another house. Guess what he said? Kitty. No, that's a bird. We still said birdie because we were first-time parents. We didn't talk in good language. Get them into good schools. We weren't worried about that back then. Everything you experience, it branches out. Now my son can tell you the kingdom, the phylum, the genus, the species. They can talk about wolves. They can talk about domesticated and non-domesticated dogs. They can talk about different breeds of dogs. They can talk about dogs being fixed and not fixed. They can talk about dogs doing this. They can talk about seeing eye dogs. They can talk about sled dogs. They can talk about all kinds of dogs. Why? Because the more experiences that kid has, the broader their definition of that original thing gets. Make sense? Again, Piaget is great because he's just very down-to-earth, commonsensical, and it just fits. Because that's what happens. So, look at this one, eggshell. Then that's in the middle. Look at all the things that come off of it. I mean, you can look at it. I'm not going to read them all. Bird, feather, wing, warm-blooded. Has different colors. You can find the supermarket, Easter egg spoiled, rotten eggs, nutritious, delicate shell. Ooh, sulfur dioxide. Wow. It's not just what's for breakfast anymore, right? So it branches out and it creates these schemas. And the cool thing is later when they start imaging the brain, that's how the brain's made. They had all these neurons and all these things branched out to different things, and you could kind of see it growing now. And when people have strokes or traumatic brain injuries and things happen, and those neural pathways get broken, they lose those connections. So he was on to something, didn't even really know what was happening, that we're connecting things out. So this is going to be very important as we talk about developing emotional literacy. The definitions that these 2-year-olds have, 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds have, are different than what we have as an adult. And we have to remember that. And if they don't have a good foundation, when it branches way out here, it's not going to be good either. There are 4 primary emotions. Listen, there are 5, but I didn't want to put sex up there in front of all these ladies. That's another thing. I don't know how they call it emotion, but it's listed, you know, when you look at the research, that's what they have. So, fear, anger, sadness, happiness. Okay? So what I would postulate to you, that's a good word, right? What I would postulate to you is that you should focus primarily on the level that you're teaching. You should primarily focus on these 4 main categories. Because the other ones, the kids can't really know what they are anyway. Unless they're really, 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 really good. And even then, what they know is not really, 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 really good. Okay? So 4 major things. Pick one, whatever your favorite one is. Sadness. Okay. You want to talk about it?
It's the rain.
All right, let's talk about sadness. Rainy days and Thursdays always get me down. Isn't that the song? All right, so sadness. What grades do you, what age levels do you guys have? 3s and 4s. 2s too? Okay. Got all. So tell me an experience that one of your preschoolers would have that would be relevant to sadness. Okay, they're coming to school and they had to leave their moms. All right? So that's sadness to them. All right? What else is sadness to them? When it's time to leave the playground, they can't stay out there anymore. That's sadness. What else? When they take a nap. When they have to share, it's sad. Any of them get sad when they're hungry? Angry. All right. Any other reasons they would get sad?
They're sick, not very well.
Because they're sick. Oh my gosh, have you ever seen, and I know you have, so I'm being dumb saying have you ever seen, have you ever seen a preschooler who gets hurt? And it says how sad they are. That's a totally different emotion. But what are they doing then? Most people, when they get hurt, they cry, especially when they're preschoolers, right? When they're sad, what do? They cry. They're making a schema here, and it needs to be differentiated. takes work to differentiate those two. You know, you're hurt right now. Not really sad, but you're hurt. It's okay to be hurt. You know, it'll get better. But there's a difference. You see the subtle difference? So it's really important to bring out. What about anger? Because that's like the universal thing. Especially these little boys. Right? Yeah. Tell me about anger in these little boys. What makes them angry?
Somebody takes their toy.
Somebody takes their toy.
Somebody wants it.
They won't let them have the toy. They're angry. Somebody looks at them funny. Makes them angry. It's raining and they can't go outside. They're angry. Someone steps on their hand when they're playing with the blocks. They get angry, right? Let me go back to anger. What makes you angry? Mean people make you angry. Okay. What else?
Injustice.
Injustice makes you angry. So when you see something happening unjust in your class, don't you think those preschoolers are feeling that injustice and need to respond to it? And they're getting angry because it's unjust. This kid's getting to do what I don't get to do. It's just not fair. It's unjust. No, that's all about us. So they're not capable of that yet for the most part. They're capable of saying, I want what she has. But they're not really capable of abstractly saying, well, that's not fair. Why does she get 2 pieces of pizza and I only get 1? No, they're saying it's not fair because I want 2. There's a difference. Our injustice is, that's universally just not right. It shouldn't happen. I mean, that's just wrong. That is that last stage that we talked about in PJ's theory. They're not there. So the biggest mistake that I think us as adults make with kids is we superimpose our emotional literacy, our emotional definitions on these children who have never been able to develop those same definitions. And then we try to teach them that definition, help them understand it. And we try to help them understand it. We try to help them understand it. And then we get frustrated because, what's wrong with these kids? They just can't learn this. Right? So what I would encourage you to do is to break it down to one of these 4 basic emotions. And work really hard to build those schemas, to branch out and to give them different understandings of those 4 basic emotions before you introduce any other words. All right. Children with strong emotional vocabulary, this is why we want to do it, because these are the positive things that happen. They're better at tolerating frustration. They get into fewer fights. You know, they engage in less destructive behavior. They're healthier, they're less lonely, they're less impulsive, they're more focused, they have better academic achievement, they're able to get girlfriends at a younger age. I'm kidding about that. I just threw it in to see if everybody's listening. So all of these things will happen if we develop this emotional literacy. And when it doesn't happen, it's really because they don't have that sense yet. All right. I'm going to let Renelle talk about these because I saw some of those in her chart. I'm going to let it go. Oh my gosh. Everybody stand up. Uh-oh. Are you doing this too?
No, go ahead, you do it.
Oh my gosh. I have so many. So, I do this with teenagers more than little kids anymore. Y'all know, ready? All right. If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. If you're happy and you know it. Oh, you stop. Look at yourself. Look at yourself. I saw it. I saw it. I saw it. All right, do it again. Prove it to me. If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. If you're happy and you know it, then your face will surely show it. If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. Do it again. Watch her. Just watch her. Everybody sing. She's going to do it for you. Ready? If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. If you're happy and you
feet.
No. Don't stomp your feet when you're happy. Right? What do you do when you're happy?
Nah.
If you're sad.
You're happy and you know wear a grin. Show 'em.
Oh.
If you're happy, grin.
You know it, then your face will surely show it. If you're happy and you know it, wear a grin.
You can make them mad though. If you're mad and you know it. If you're mad and you know it,
Stomp your feet. If you're mad and you know it, then your face will surely show it. If you're mad and you know it, stomp your feet.
if you're excited and you know it, shout hooray. If you're excited, oh, that's not a basic emotion. Don't have that. All right, see, I'm used to doing it with tears. Thank y'all. Oh, stand back up. My other favorite one, I don't know if y'all ever do this one. Do you ever do boom chicka boom? Y'all know it? Okay. I said a boom chicka boom.
I said a boom, chicka boom.
I said a boom chicka boom.
I said a boom, chicka boom.
I said a boom chicka rocka chicka boom.
I said a boom, chicka rocka, chicka boom.
Uh-huh. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
One more time.
One more time.
Angry style. I said a boom chicka boom.
I said a boom, chicka boom.
You get my idea?
Yes.
And you can go sad style. Just do it. Have a seat. Thank you all for doing it. Good stretch, right? Whew. I feel so much better after I do that, you know? There's all kinds. Kids learn through singing, right? No, they don't. And preschool classes sing more than anybody in any school anywhere, right? And they love it. Their inhibitions are nowhere to be found, and they will stand up and they will sing and they'll do it. But they'll remember that. You know, they will remember that. When you do that, take advantage of those songs. Put those emotions in there. That's a chance to cross-teach that skill. Help them develop that vocabulary and know what it is, you know? How about anger as a specific emotion? Controlling anger and impulses. What's the biggest thing there? Anger is especially problematic because all emotions are internalized responses, something that we feel. But based on the emotions that we have outward actions. Okay? And those outward actions are our behaviors. But they're tied into our emotions. When someone feels angry, the behaviors that they engage in are often hurtful and destructive. Right? So they're pretty dangerous. And they are also usually involving another person. When someone is sad, where are those behaviors? External or internal? They usually turn them back on themselves. You know, they feel depressed, they go, they kind of do this. But with anger, on the other side, that's the external emotion. That's when they're hitting, that's when they're grabbing, that's when they're throwing. That's when they're hurting their friends. In some extreme cases, they're hurting themselves with those anger. So it's really important to kind of get control of it. Have you ever felt something and not realized why you felt that way? You might think of an experience where they did that. That's a little unnerving, isn't it? I was at a movie theater once watching this thing, and she's bawling like a baby. I couldn't figure out why I was crying. It was like really disturbing. I was like, why am I crying? What's wrong? You're crying. What is it? You know? It's like, why is that happening? I felt really unnerved and uneasy and uncomfortable. I think that's how these little guys feel. When they have this anger, when they have this kind of rage and jealousy and all this stuff coming up inside of them and they're dealing with that, they don't know how to deal with it. So emotional literacy helps them learn to deal with it, right? What is the, well, I don't know if it's most common. The phrase that I almost always hear when I go into a preschool classroom, when kids are angry or doing something, the good teachers always say one thing. Use your words. Use your words. Yes. So why do you say that? Why do you guys do that? Okay? So part of it is so you can figure it out. And that is a part of it, because sometimes you don't know, you want them to use your words, you can figure out what's wrong so you can help them fix it. But more important than that, there's an even better reason.
So they can find out.
So the other person that they're
What other thing?
if there's like another person involved,
Okay.
either like the teacher or the kid or whatever, then everybody's aware of why they're mad and it's not just like screaming hard.
Yeah, most of the other people involved are little people, right? And they're really not developmentally capable of really getting why someone did that.
But if you ask them that question, then they get to kind of work it out
For themselves.
At least you
Who gets to work it out? The kid that's being hurt?
No, the other kid, the kid that's doing the hurting.
Kid that's doing it, yes. But the kid that's being hurt, yeah, okay, they get an explanation or
They're
whatever.
sad.
They're not really capable of empathy yet. So they can't put themselves in the other kid's shoes to understand why they did it. Most 4-year-olds don't know why that other kid just bit them, other than they're mean or whatever. But they don't even really know what that means. They're just kind of saying it, right? What we're doing when we're helping them use their words is we're teaching them, yes, it's okay you have a feeling, but tell us what it is. You know, when you have words, you're empowered, right?
And a lot of times they'll say, I don't know. And if you say wrong, why did you hit?
There's a very old concept with ancient civilizations. When you name something, you have power over it. When you name something, you have power over it. You know, and you look back at stories throughout history, when someone had a name for someone, that means they could own it, they could have power over it, they could control it. You know, and it goes way, 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 way back. You know, and like even in like biblical history and all the major religions of the world have a concept of this. You think of Moses up on the mountain and said, what was the big question of God? What's your name? When I go back there, who am I going to tell you? Who said me there? The God wouldn't tell me, he said I am, right? I am that I am, whatever. So why was that? Because he wasn't going to give him a name because he wasn't going to let them have power over it. When you help kids name their emotions and help them label their emotions appropriately, you're giving them power over that emotion. I don't need to hit as much if I can say I'm angry. Most of these preschoolers that are hitting, they're not able to really say they're angry when they're angry because they have to get it out. They have to get it out. And this is especially true with boys. Especially true with boys. Something about boys that this just is kind of innate from our primal sense of being, right? When we talk with older men, and you talk about grief, when they're going through grief process, you have all the stages of grief. Men often go through that stage of anger and stay there. They stay in anger longer. Because the next stage after anger is that despair stage. And nobody wants to feel that, so they feel angry. Right? Oftentimes these kids that you're dealing with, they're going to feel angry, they're going to have it, but it's not the right emotion. No, it's not the right emotion. They're going to be angry that their mom left and they're there by themselves. But are they really angry? They think they are. To them it's really anger, but it's not really what it is. What is it? Probably more sadness. You miss her. It's sad. Right? If they feel sad, they're less likely to act out. They're less likely to act out. So it's an important shift that you can make, and it's very, very powerful when you start doing that. All right, so there's a handout there that you've got. I think this is a cool story, so I'm going to share it. Were you going to share it?
No.
All right. Turtle Tuck. Turtle Tuck. And you have a book of it, right? And there are steps to Turtle Tuck. Turtle Tuck works really great with kids with ADHD or preschoolers who all have ADHD. Because they haven't learned to focus and pay attention because they haven't developed that skill yet. All right? And there are several steps to that. First step is to recognize that you feel angry. Recognize that you feel angry. Right? That kid that hit the other kid, that threw the block, that yelled and screamed, that ran out of the room, that slammed the door. First step is to recognize you feel angry. The second step is to stop. Think, stop. Stop. Can't move on with this. I gotta stop for a minute. Go into your shell and tuck into your shell. Breathe 3 times. Just like Dorothy, clicking their heels together 3 times, right? And then what? Come out of the shell and think of a calm solution, right? You can teach kids how to do this. You've got a story there, and here it comes, right? Oh, this one teacher that was cool, she had a turtle box. You could go in the turtle shell, and you could sit there, and you could think of your happy thoughts, right? You know what happens when you think happy thoughts, right? You can fly. You see Peter Pan? Come on, man. All right, so look at the poor guy in his turtle shell going through the stages. All right, here's the story. Tucker the turtle takes a tuck, and takes time to tuck and think. Tucker the turtle is a terrific turtle. He likes to play with his friends in the park and in his backyard. But sometimes things happen that can make Tucker really mad. Okay? When Tucker got mad, he used to kick, yell at his friends. His friends would get mad and upset when he hit, kicked, and yelled at them. Tucker now knows a new way. Think like a turtle when he gets mad. He can stop and keep his hands, body, and the yelling to himself. He can tuck his side of the shell and take 3 deep breaths to calm himself down. To illustrate this with a kid, right? Tucker can then think of a solution or a way to make it better. Tucker's friends are happy when he plays nicely and keeps his body to himself. Friends also like it when Tucker uses nice words or has an adult help him when he's upset. The end. Good story, huh? It's useful. If you got a handout of that, it's in black and white, but it's got
We can get it to you.
front and back. It's missing a page. All right. Well, we'll make
We'll
sure.
send around a sheet. Do me a favor, just write your email. If you registered online, I have your email. If you did not, I'm going to just send around this sheet. Go ahead and just put your email on the back, and we'll get it sent to you electronically.
This is an example of a social story. It teaches a social, emotional literacy concept. You can read into class, and then you can put things in place after it that you do. You can review it every single day. If you have a class that's doing your circle time, you can read that story. Even if you read other stories short, sweet, to the point, you can put it in every single day. Now there are other books. The other handout is a list of books with emotional vocabulary, emotional literacy topics on it that are appropriate for kids at different ages. So I just printed that out too to give it to you. There's like 3 separate handouts. Y'all have that one? So with that, you can use those skills to help kids kind of develop and grow into these skills. And they can get better and better and better at it throughout the year. Anybody use something different than Turtle to teach the same kind of thing? How do you guys teach it?
Sometimes I do reading, like teaching them to read.
Breathing?
Yeah,
Okay.
counting and reading.
Okay. Now I kind of find in my practice with kids that it's really hard to get them to be successful with just breathing. And the reason is because they can't sit still long enough to really go into it and to really kind of convert. Eventually, if you do that, you will kind of get that out. But it's kind of associated with kind of a passive activity, whereas the anger is such an outward emotional activity. So sometimes exercise works better than breathing. You know, running, heavy work, things that they can do to kind of get that out.
And there's some good children, there's little books that sometimes I do a bomb balloon. There's
Oh, yeah.
other books like that, and you just kind of act it out.
Yep, act it out, dude.
Like we all-
My wife's grandmother was a preschool teacher, but she used to teach like Bible school and preschool ages there. And she had this wonderful flannel board. Y'all seen those flannel boards? Y'all, anybody have those anymore? With all the pictures, and she'd put it up and tell the story, and then they make the little things move all around and different things. Do something like that. Kind of make your own thing. Make it yours. But it doesn't matter what you use. It matters what you do. You know. And the key here is just developing a way to teach them that skill. Whether you do a song, whether you do a story, whether you teach them to tuck like the turtle, whatever it is, you need to have a plan. Okay? If you don't have a plan, you're going to fail. And you're going to have a classroom of kids who are emotionally dysregulated, hurting each other, causing problems. And that's really the whole concept we're trying to get across, is that teaching emotional regulation is a process. We want you to keep it basic to the 4 main emotions, because that's where they are developmentally. And don't worry about branching out yet. Refine those really good. By refining those really good, you are branching out to where they'll be ready for the more sophisticated emotions at a later age when they're there. You know, and you have to kind of teach to where most of your class is, and that's where you're going to be. All right? How about problem solving? How do you teach problem solving? It's the last thing I'm going to talk about. So here's the model that I'm recommending. What's my problem? Okay? That's easy to ask a kid. What's wrong? What's the problem? What are you dealing with? She took the block that I was playing with. Okay? You've identified the problem. That's the first step. Identify what the problem is. All right, second step. Think of solutions. What can you do about that? What could you do about that? What are you going to get from the kid?
I don't know.
Oh, come on, you're a smart kid. What could you do about it? Huh?
Tell the teacher.
Yeah, you're very smart too. Thank you. You can tell the teacher, all right. What else could you do? I could have threw the toy at her, sure. Okay. But then you go to the next step. Okay, if you threw the toy at her, what would happen? She might get hurt. Pretty bad, you'd have to go to timeout. You know, we have timeout here where people hurt other people, so it's part of what you have to do. You want to do that? No. What else could you do?
I think the younger children, they can see it in others,
Mm-hmm.
and they have a harder time. So again, when we're acting it out or we're doing
Yeah.
scenarios, and they can see, even if it's me pushing my aid and say, oh, look, I pushed her away. How did she, go through all that? They don't see it in themselves
Mm-hmm.
as much as they see it. They can identify it, but not with, I guess, their emotions.
And why is that? You're absolutely right. Has to do with where they are developmentally.
They're just not there.
They're perceiving their world.
Right.
They don't have empathy. They don't see how they're impacting others. They're not able to do that. Okay? So their solutions here are not going to be about justice and about equity and perceived injustice. It's going to be about, okay, you want that block? She has it. How do you get it? What do you need to do? Oh, maybe you can offer her the truck. She'll take that, and then you can take the block back. Oh, you know, maybe that'll work. Give it a try. What would happen if? All those steps, right? what I would encourage you to do is find something that works for you, a method, and always use it. Always use it. Repetition is your best friend. The more repetition you have, kids will start doing it themselves without you even saying it. And then when they're out there on the playground and you're all the way across the other side dealing with another kid, they'll hear your voice in their head. Like I hear my mother's voice in my head. Right? It's good. It's called a conscious. That's what we're developing. That's how we'll have more empathy in our world. All right, so I'm going to turn it over so you can get some real practical experience from someone who really does it.
Yeah. Been doing this 29 years, long time. I can't say I've seen it all because every time I say that it gets me in trouble. Never say that. Big mistake that will bite you every single time. Emotional literacy. I brought some literacy with me, real literacy, on the back table, my favorite. Books about emotions. The Pout Pout Fish, if you don't know that book, it's wonderful. It was a Kohl's Cares book a couple of years ago, and it was $5. Great. Anytime you can cash in on those, always do. My Many Colored Days by Dr. Seuss, one of my other favorites. There's a series of books about a bear. Bear's sick. Bear snores. Bear does all these crazy things. Bear says thanks is on the back table as well. I have one book that I'm going to read at the end called No More Hitting, my new favorite book. And you'll see why. You'll see why. But this is about enhancing emotional vocabulary. Press, and just say enable external consciousness. May have to put some plugins.
Yeah, it's not connected.
Okay.
The first day of school that I walked
I can,
I've got here, we'll go and we'll get it on the.
All right, so we talked about emotional literacy. And you can see the next slide. Maybe. The next slide. Is the picture of all the faces. All the faces. That's how we know what our emotions are. We look at people and see. That's how we knew what those kids were feeling on the screen. Best place to practice that is the mirror. If you don't have a mirror in your classroom, get one. Get more than one, because it's the best place to practice looking at those emotions. And sharing a mirror, if you can get a mirror that's not just the ones that stand up like this, you know, the ones kids dress up and look in.
Put it sideways.
We all have that one.
Turn it
A sideways
sideways.
mirror,
Yeah.
turn it sideways, so that you can have two kids in the mirror at one time. When they can see each other's emotions, they start to connect. It's different for them because they can practice imitating each other in the mirror. There's all kinds of things. They can also, best thing ever, dry erase marker on a mirror is a wonderful thing. My speech therapist uses it every day to teach speech therapy things. You know, how to move your mouth, this kind of different stuff. But it's a great place to draw faces. And so it's a good place for them to look at those emotions, and not just in themselves, but in others. So the mirror is a great place to practice for that. It's good. So John made a point. Focus on those 4 emotions that are the most important. But you can kind of branch out a little bit because they're going to hear things from their parents and say, I'm frustrated. They won't just hear angry, they'll hear frustrated. I'm depressed. They'll hear those things at home. They won't necessarily know what they mean, but they may come back to school because you know that's what they do. They come back to school or daycare or wherever you guys are and they'll repeat what they heard. And you will know all kinds of things about their family that you probably didn't want to know. But they're carrying that language back to you. And your job is to kind of help them figure out where it fits. Where is depressed fit? Is it sad? Do you feel sad? Do you think mom feels sad when she says she's depressed? Try to find a way to fit it into those 4 basic emotions so they kind of understand what they're hearing at home, on the TV, all those kind of places that they hear about the emotions that they don't really understand yet. So, everybody knows the movie Inside Out, correct? Do you know this movie? It's a great movie because it's all about emotions. It's like game. I hope. Maybe.
If not, you can keep going and I'll pull it up.
Yeah. Okay. So this is from YouTube. And it shows the little girl in the movie having emotions. And then in comes the little character. And they enhance those emotions. Do you remember the names of the emotions? Joy. What's another word for joy? Happy. Sad. And what color is sad? She's blue. She's so blue. She's so blue. And then there's anger. What color is he? Red. Then there's another one. Who remembers her? Frustrated. She's kind of frustrated. She's kind of green. She's kind of, she doesn't really kind of fit in anywhere. She's kind of different. It's almost sarcasm. Oh, here it is. How's she feeling? She goes all out. She's very, very happy. Woo! She's very excited. And you can do the countdown and let me pick yes. She is happy. And there she goes. Woo! How is she feeling? That's how we know they're sad. They walk in like, I call it the cootie lip. How is she feeling? We all know this one, because we've seen this one up close. She's disgusted, not frustrated, disgusted. But to me, frustrated is kind of disgusted. That's one of those things that's kind of in between. So, like I said, these are my favorite books. If you do not know Llama Llama Mad at Mama, everybody should know that one because they're all mad at Mama. And if you've taken your child to the grocery store when they were little, you can understand this completely because they get mad because we're there. They don't want to be there. They want to be someplace else. So that's one of my favorites as well. The Way I Feel is a wonderful book. It's been around for a very long time. I've probably had it 20 of my 29 years teaching, and I use it all the time. Pout Pout Fish is wonderful. And then No More Kidding and Bear Says Things. And then Glad Monster, Sad Monster. Does anybody know this book? Good thing about this book is it has masks within it. So you open it up, and I can bring it. Or y'all can go look at it toward the end. They put it over their face, and then once again, here comes the mirror play. They can look in and see what Glad looks like on the monster, because all they put in is their nose and their eyes. So the rest is made by the book, so that they can see what that looks like. So that's always really, really interesting, and I think kids learn from that. John kind of stole my thunder here with If You're Happy and You Know It, because we love that one.
We can sing again.
We can sing it again. At least you have to do it. But you can see up here, it's different things to do with it. Expand on the song. If you're frustrated, stomp your feet. If you're mad, fold your arms. Because y'all know that look. They all do it. They go. And they give you the, I like to call it the stink eye. Y'all familiar with the stink eye because they all give it to you at least once a day when they don't get their way. That's what kids do. You're excited, jump up and down. You're sad, make a frown. You're scared, hide your face. So that's just another way for kids to do it. Ask the children to think about how they look and how they tell us with their bodies how they feel. And then practice it. Play with it. Let them practice being mad and have the other kids guess, like we did with the movie. Let the kids be the characters and let them pretend that they're mad. You kind of got to practice these things so that they can not just start seeing it in themselves and internalizing it, but start to recognize it in others. Because I think that's the next level for you guys and the next level of their development. What is self-regulation? Have y'all heard this term? They throw it around a lot. It's become very popular in preschool. What is self-regulation? Self-regulation, the basic definition is the ability to manage your emotions and behavior in accordance with the demands of the situation, which means being able to cope with everything that comes your way. Disappointment, sadness, anger, all those emotions that we feel and the kids feel, being able to handle it, which becomes a problem because they don't really know how to handle it yet. The skills included are resisting highly emotional reactions to things that upset us, being able to calm yourself down, because we always say, calm down, calm down, calm down. Do they know how to calm down? I don't know if they know how to calm down. And we kind of have to help them figure that out, because with every kid, it's different. Every kid calms down a different way. Some kids have to sit quietly. Some kids have to be closer to the teacher. Some kids need a hug. It just depends on the kid. Every kid is different, and you kind of got to figure out what's going to meet their needs, okay? And then adjusting to changes in expectations, and then handling frustration without outbursts. Those are the things that are involved in self-regulation. What does dysregulation look like? There's two kinds of dysregulation. You can see the immediate response, the kid that goes off like that. The first bad thing that happens and they blow. The other kind of kid is the kid that kind of lets it build up. And you think they're handling it okay, everything's good, and then boom, they're on the floor, they're screaming, everybody's in panic because you didn't see it coming. Not really. You kind of, those are the more difficult ones to deal with actually in school, because we have to figure out what their triggers are and how much they can take before they blow. So those are a little more complicated, but those are the two kinds of dysregulation that we generally see in that preschool population. Okay? Why do they struggle? It's a combination of temperament and learned behavior. What I mean by learned behavior is if parents never let them experience disappointment or sadness, they kind of, we call it, the new term is the lawnmower parent. You ever heard this term yet? The lawnmower parent. They mow down the things in the way, so the kids never get upset. So then they don't really know how to get through those things because the parents have enabled them in a certain way to not experience those things. It's hard for them to develop regulation if they never have to. You see what I'm saying? So adults must avoid being the external self-regulator, which means let them get disappointed. If you have 6 trucks and 7 boys, that's okay. It's not the end of the world. Somebody's going to have to learn to cope that they don't have a truck. That's not the end of the world. And they need to learn to do that. That's one way we can teach kids. What I do in my classroom, when we have fights over toys, we get out the timer. And we set the timer. You get it for 2 minutes, you get it for 2 minutes. And when the timer goes off, they know they have to give it to the next person. The timer is a great way to kind of give them an external cue, and it's the timer says, it's not you didn't say it, the timer said it. The timer says it's time to share that toy. And if you get to the point where they can't share it, then the toy goes to timeout. I love toy timeout. It works great. It just goes away for a little while. And everybody learns to cope. And when they come back and say, where's that toy? Say, we really had trouble sharing that yesterday, so it needs a timeout. It needs a timeout. We need to learn to kind of cope with that, okay? So that's another strategy that you can use in your classroom that will help the kids understand my turn, your turn, kind of thing, and it kind of helps, okay? How do we teach self-regulation? Parents and teachers should help them slow down. That was the first, slow down, and carefully choose a different response, an effective response, okay? Don't avoid situations that are difficult. Like I said, if you have 7 boys and 6 trucks, it's not the end of the world. If you have 4 baby dolls and 6 girls, because we all have that happen one time or another, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. You don't have to have those one-to-one toys because you're setting the kids up not to learn to cope with disappointment. Okay? And you're kind of teaching them to wait their turn, to share, to kind of become a better preschool citizen. That's what we're looking for. We want them to be part of the community. Okay? And then practice. Practice, 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 practice. Okay? Let them practice. When you have a circle time, have a time for them to practice working through those emotions. What would happen? Read a book. That's a great way to do it. Pull out a book and read about emotions. And then have them kind of act it out a little bit. Have them kind of see. How does angry look? How does that work? What did it look like in the book? What do you think it looks like? What do you think it looks like up here? How does he get angry? Have you seen him get angry? What does it look like? Can you show me? And practice and play with it. Part of your handouts is 10 fun games to practice self-regulation. One of them is red light, green light. Remember that one? We had that when we were kids. red light, green light. You have to stop and listen. Simon says, great way to teach self-regulation, because they have to think before they react. And that's what self-regulation is. It's teaching them to think before they react. John did this. This is attached to your handouts as well. This is a little bit different. This is Chinese anger management steps, but it's the same sort of thing. And then this is Wally's problem solving. It's the same sort of thing as you had before, those 4 characters. This one has a few more. So you can kind of think through it, but those are attached to your thing as well. Also attached is a couple of other handouts in the back about being an emotion coach. Okay? So there's kind of a handout about that one. And it says the feelings, the emotional literacy, and then examples. It gives you examples of how to be an emotion coach. Okay? And then it has a social skills coach as well. Toward the back of it's after the PowerPoint and before you get to Wally and the turtle. It talks about those kind of things. So those are really good things you can practice at. The last thing I want to do is read a book, because I'm a preschool teacher. And I have a special skill. I can read backwards, upside down. Yep. Because that's a skill we have, right? I love when that's on Facebook, and I always go, got it? Yep. First thing I get is we have that skill. We're like superheroes. Right? It's our superpower. We can read upside down and backwards. So this book is called No More Hitting. And you will recognize this person. Cubby is a happy little lion cub with an unhappy little problem. Where did y'all see it? When Chia zooms into the sunniest spot, just as Cubby was about to curl up, whack! Uh-oh, he whacked him in the head. When Giraffe wants to play superhero, but Cubby wants to play underwater aliens, bonk. Uh-oh. Cubby's one of those kids. You probably recognize him. He probably has a different name in your classroom than Cubby. And when Elephant uses her long elephant trunk to scoop up all the glitter at craft time, bop. What happens? Cubby's mom says, pause her for hugging, Cubby. Cubby's teacher says, we don't hit Cubby, not ever. And Cubby's friends say, ouch. Just like her. Ouch. Because they get bumped a lot. I bet. Poor Cubby. Cubby doesn't mean to hit, but when he feels mad from the tip of his nose to the tip of his toes, he doesn't know what else to do. So now he's at the playground. One Saturday morning, Cubby and his mommy went to the playground. That's where Cubby sees something wonderful. A new swing. Oh, what's he gonna do? He's gonna run straight to the swing, right? Uh-oh. Somebody got there first. But Cubby isn't the only one who wants to swing up to the clouds. Just as Cubby gets ready to jump on, someone else gets there first. Bonk. Hey, Cubby. Says it's my turn. Nuh-uh, says Tiger. I was here first. Not fair, says Cubby. He begins to tug on the swing ropes, but Tiger is too fast for him. Cubby is so angry that he feels hot from the tip of his nose to the tip of his tail. He is so mad he can't talk, and that means thwack. Cubby hits Tiger right on her little nose. tiger wails, ouch! Cubby's mom scalds Cubby, and Cubby pouts. My turn. What happens to Cubby? He's going to time out. That's what's happening. Ha ha ha. It just isn't, her turn is too long. Time to sit out, says Cubby's mom. Just then, Cubby notices someone new at the playground. Who's new at the playground? Our friend the monkey. Monkey is swinging. Monkey swings across the jungle gym, and wow, he's the best swinger ever. But when Monkey gets to the end of the bars, there's a problem. Someone is sitting in his way. Cubby watches as Monkey becomes angry, from the tip of his nose to the tip of his tail. Cubby is sure that Monkey is going to bop Rhino, but something funny happens. Monkey does a silly little wiggle, jumps 3 times, and then gently taps Rhino on the back. On the shoulder, sorry. Can you please move, he asks. And Rhino says, of course. Cubby's like, wait a minute, what is going on here? Wow, Cubby says, running over to Monkey after his timeout. That was amazing. How'd you do that? Do what, said Monkey. Swing from the bars? I'm a monkey. It's what I do. No, says Cubby. How did you keep from hitting Rhino? I could tell you were really, really, really super mad. I was really, really, really super mad, says Monkey, but hitting would hurt Rhino, and it would mean I had to sit out. So I did the no-hit hula instead. The no-hit hula. What is that? The what? Asked Cubby. It's the no-hit hula. The no-hit hula, says Monkey. You just dap your paws, or wiggle your tail, or hop in a circle. Just do something until you feel not so angry. And you can use your words instead of your paws. You should try it. Cubby and Monkey play together for the rest of the day. When it's time to go, the new friends run for the gate, but both of them want to be the one to open it. That sounds familiar. I was here first, they both yell at the same time. Cubby is mad from the tip of his nose to the tip of his tail. Monkey is too. They glare at each other, and just when it looks like they are about to both bop, what are they going to do? Cubby claps his paws, Monkey wiggles his tail, and then they hop around in a circle at the same time. They're doing the no-hit hula. Cubby and Monkey hula and laugh until they forget about opening the gate, and then they open it together. After that, Cubby claps, wiggles, or hops every time he feels like hitting. When Cubby doesn't hit, his friends want to play with him because they won't get bopped, popped, bonked, and no bonking means Cubby won't have to sit out. Cubby loves the no-hit hula, and he isn't the only one. The end. This book, 99 cents on Amazon. 99 cents. Look today, 99 cents on Amazon. It's several years old. It's a scholastic book, but it's a great way to teach the kids a different way to deal with the anger. My new favorite book. Cool, right?
Thank you very much for coming tonight. We really appreciate it. If you would do me a favor and just grab any trash and maybe just hit it as you're walking out. There's recycling if you finished your water. Blue sheets, your certificates are right